Welcome to the Social Media Manager. I'm your host, Dakota Jeane, and this is my very bestie, best friend, Courtney Robinson.
Thank you for having me and for the applause.
Thank you so much for doing this with me. I feel like I was thinking about it this morning, and I was like, I should have had Courtney on right away so I could feel like more comfortable going into doing this. But anyway, so I was thinking also, I don't know if you remember this, but a few months ago, you were like trying to get me into listening podcasts.
And you were a huge jerk face about it and was like, podcasts suck. And then all of a sudden you want to create one. Yeah.
Yeah. And you sent me some, and I'm like, I don't listen to podcasts because, like, when I go on my runs, I like want to listen to like punk music or whatever just to get me going. And now, guess what I listen to on my runs?
You listen to podcasts?
I listen to podcasts while I run. Who am I?
I have a theory that I'm kind of like your boyfriend in the sense that anytime I give you advice about something, your knee-jerk reaction is to do exactly the opposite.
Oh my God, you're so right. What was the band? Broken Social Scene.
Oh my gosh. My favorite band. Every time I'm like, listen to this song, you're like, I hate it. And then we're in a restaurant and it plays and you're like, this song's amazing. Oh, rolling my eyes.
Oh my God, I'm the worst. It's true. So, yeah, I want to talk about how we know each other. I want to first start out by saying that I'm really disappointed in the way that you didn't want to be my friend in high school. So that's my side of the story.
Set the record straight for everybody because this recording has the potential to exist forever. So let's set the record straight right here and right now. Okay.
Okay. What's your side of the story?
I mean, we both graduated from a small town high school, same small town high school. I had lived in this small town for far over a decade by the time you moved in during our junior year.
Mm-hmm.
And I have always believed that I am an open-minded, approachable person, but our first interaction led you to misunderstand my friendliness. So why don't you tell the story about this interaction?
Okay. So I remember you had really curly hair. That has nothing to do with the story, but I just remember you having really curly hair. And your leg was broken, right? You had like a cast on.
I definitely had a cast, yes.
And so I remember walking into the girls' bathroom in high school, and you, since you had this cast on, were wearing a slipper on that foot. And your other foot, I'm pretty sure, just had like a regular shoe. And I just remember it being really furry, and I saw you and I was just like, hey, rad slipper. And you like walked out of the bathroom, didn't say anything, and you and all these girls were like laughing, and I was like, oh my God, my life sucks.
Okay.
So that's what happened.
For the audience here who wasn't in that bathroom, right? So Dakota said rad slipper, and my response was, who says rad? It's not the 80s or something like that. And that's what set Dakota into this thought that I never wanted to be her friend. When ideally the friend group I hung out with already was like open to welcome you in because you were some cool guitar playing, artistic lady that totally fit the same type of, interests and desires that we had. So
yeah,
and now you're friends with all those girls too.
I know.
So
it's really funny because it's like I don't even know how many years later, like 17 years later, that this happened like 17 years ago. I still think about it. Yikes. Anyway, Yeah,
Can I
it's
share something I was thinking about from like
yeah.
17 years ago that I wanted to bring up?
Yes, please.
So maybe this is more like 15 or 16 years, but like let's not get too in the weeds about that. Um, after high school, I distinctly remember you deciding to write like a zine or some type of
Oh,
like
yeah.
opinion journal. And
Mhm.
you like really went hard. And I was like, wow, this was her like journey into journalism and podcasting. She didn't even know it, but like right out of high school, starting to share her opinions and thoughts to people. So just
Yeah, well, it's
showing what kind of success you were setting yourself up for. So,
interesting that you remembered that. I started an online magazine called Jeane magazine, and that was like I think I started it in Durango and I kept going in Fountain Hills. And then the zine that you're talking about was the printed um zine that was like all political and awesome, and yeah, that was I forgot about that.
yeah, I mean, you've been a Spitfire since the beginning. So,
Well, anyway, this this episode is not about me. This is about you. So I want to talk about a bunch of things, a million things. So let's start out with a really, really important question. Are you ready?
I am so ready.
What do you think about Kim Kardashian dating Pete Davidson?
Wow. I knew that you were going to ask about this because I sent Dakota an Instagram post yesterday and I said, "Why do I care about this in any capacity? And also why does it make me upset a little bit?" And what I realized is that Ariana Grande beats Kim Kardashian any day. And I think from like an artistic talent perspective, let's not get into the politics of
Hmm.
this, but I personally think Kanye on an artistic level beats out Pete Davidson. So I'm kind of like they both deserve better. They both could do better. I don't get it. I'm just confused.
Okay, so when I first saw them holding hands on that roller coaster, I was like, they're just hanging out. They're just like, whatever, making headlines, no big deal. And then it came out yesterday that they're officially dating, and I was like, this is still a joke, right? Like this actually, it's not real, is it? And anyway, it's kind of funny.
Well, I actually read a hot take from and I don't even know if I would call her an influencer, but she's kind of like a she is a under the table journalist. She doesn't work for any like specific, journalism platform, but she just kind of like sleuths on the internet and posts her own
Okay.
opinions about things. And she shared this hot take that because Courtney has been getting so much attention with her engagement to Travis Barker, this is Kim's like rebellion to get back into the spotlight. So I think that that's a pretty accurate hot take that woman had. So
But it's like, if that were true, why Pete Davidson? And like, why not, I don't know, any other awesome like rock star or I don't know. Is it just because Pete Davidson makes headlines?
yeah, so I think Pete Davidson has a really like interesting history of like being a performer. Primarily we know him from SNL, right? So, he's had quite public issues with addiction, going to rehab, different things like that. And it hasn't uh, impacted his career or devastated his career in the same capacity that other people experience. So it seems to be that I don't know if it's Lord Michaels that's like really championing behind the scenes for Pete Davidson or who it is at NBC, but like people love this guy and he is funny. I mean, he is a funny, you know, self-deprecating comedian who is more than willing to put himself on blast and call out to attention what a loser he is. So there's definitely something approachable about that, I would say, and kind of relatable. So I don't know.
Actually, it's a good point because I'm sure after dating Kanye, or being married to Kanye, and however long they were together. I think they got married when I was still working for her, so that was 2014. But yeah, I can imagine that that was probably a pretty intense relationship. I don't know how fun Kanye is. Um, he doesn't seem like he like has a bunch of laughs, so I'm sure it's just a completely different situation for Kim right now.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, granted, this is all speculations
I
for the
know.
most part. You know Kim to some degree, but like we're all just speculating here since we don't really know these people. I do
We're
take Kanye.
qualified, okay?
I mean, I don't know if it's just that, he broke his jaw and it like literally pains him to smile. And so that's what makes us all
Mm.
think that he's such a serious person. But he definitely takes um his like work serious on another level from a lot of creatives. So um I don't know. Maybe Kanye does have a really good sense of humor that's like just hidden because we don't get to see that.
Yeah,
I have a hard time I have a hard time wrapping my head around it considering how like outlandish he is when he speaks and opens his mouth. So
yeah, totally agree. Well, anyway,
moving
let's move
on.
on. I actually really want to talk to you about your work and things that you do on a more, I guess this is more serious, but um, I guess I've been thinking about how pretty much everyone is quitting their jobs. You know, we're going through the Great Resignation or the Great Reshuffle. And you have been at the same company forever, it feels like. And I just want you to talk a little bit about what you do, who you work for, and why are you still there?
Yeah, so I mean if it's okay, I might tell like a little bit more about just like my career journey since I graduated high school and how I got
Yes,
here too.
please.
So I definitely took a bit of an unconventional path out of high school. A lot of kids go into college. I decided to go to trade school, became a cosmetologist, and I did do cosmetology work full time for close to 3 years. But it was right in the midst of the housing crisis of 2008. And, when people are looking at cutting their budgets so that they can make their mortgage payments and stuff, the fluffy things that they look to cut out is getting their hair done or getting manicures and pedicures. So I was definitely struggling to make ends meet like a lot of people. And I ended up serving throughout most of that time to, get cash tips or I ended up doing some temp jobs and I found my way into a company through a temp job that I don't even think exists anymore. They used to be called The Warehouse or FYE, but we
Oh,
sold
yeah.
and bought like DVDs and like video games and CDs. And I worked there and actually ended up doing like some management stuff there for the last 3 years I worked for the company. But it was very clear to me I had no career development opportunities because they were closing stores left and right. It's like Blockbuster. Like we all knew that there was no future for them. So I had to, get creative and use my network and figure out like how I was going to um, get a job that was going to, you know, pay the bills and provide me benefits. And at that point in time, going back into hair full time just like wasn't an option when you're self-employed. This health insurance, all that stuff becomes very, very challenging. And I had had
Yes.
some kind of recent health things that really had set in stone for me. Like I need consistent health coverage. I'm not willing to go back to this like covering myself nonsense. So someone I used to work with had posted on Facebook that their company was hiring and they were referring people, and I reached out and ended up getting a referral. And so the company I work for is PayPal, one of the big tech companies. And
Yeah,
at
like
that
the
time when I got
hugest.
hired, yeah, one of the biggest probably. um, so I got hired there in 2012, and at the time eBay still owned PayPal. And so I, had no experience in financial services or like e-commerce work whatsoever. My whole background up to that point had been like serving at restaurants and doing hair. And I apparently made an impression through interviews, got a job as like a very bottom level call center employee. And so the thing that, one of the reasons I like so advocate for people to, be open-minded about looking at larger companies or tech companies is because of the like development and growth opportunities that you have there. So within, 6 months, I'd already had a chance to try two different jobs. I got to keep one of them, and it kind of moved me into a space where I was doing a lot of like new hire training and mentoring, a lot of coaching stuff. And it kind of opened my eyes up to the fact that leadership was something I was really invested in and wanted to kind of focus on from like a career development perspective. And I knew I was going to have to like figure out the right niche place in the company before I was like ready to really dive into this leadership role. So, you know, fast forward years, I've had like tons of different jobs throughout the company. And now I work in kind of more of like the sales organization. So I'm a relationship manager for enterprise merchants that work with PayPal. And I'm basically responsible for like maintaining the revenue that PayPal earns from these companies. So I have to, support these external relationships with the merchants that are outside of my company. But the most challenging part of my job is actually maintaining internal relationships and networking with people in the company because, I'm the one having to go to bat for these outside businesses. So,
Yeah, well, before we get into that, are you able to tell us a few of the clients that you work with? Because, I mean, you're saying external merchants, but like they're big, huge companies.
yeah. So I'm not sure if I can like really say. I think some of that stuff might be proprietary. I
Okay.
do like, so what I will tell you is like, think of department stores or like large, large brands, chain establishments. An example, this is not someone I support, but like an example of a name I'm thinking of would be like Target or, big companies like that are in a lot of cases global and have a pretty large reach in retail spaces, but also in like the e-commerce online world. So I do think that you would ask me or part of the first question that I didn't quite get to answer about like one of the reasons why I'm so passionate to work for like a company like PayPal and why I've worked there for so long. And honestly, it's the benefits, the like work-life balance that I get with being able to take time off,
Hmm.
have I really do believe that the company I work for has like my best interest in mind and wants me to have, health in all capacities, mental health, wellness, physical wellness, like all of it. So, regardless of pay or anything like that, it's the culture and the benefits that really keep me working for the company. So,
You, through PayPal, get what is it called? When you have like a few
sabbatical.
sabbatical every, what,
Hmm.
5 years?
Yeah, every 5 years. So it's kind of one of their like retention incentives. As long as you're, still working for the company, every 5 years, you are eligible to take a like large chunk of time off that's all paid. And so um, next year, I actually qualify for my second one because it'll be my
Yeah.
10-year mark. So, but I mean, the company has been around for over 20 years now. So some people have, I have colleagues who have literally worked for the company since 1998 and have taken their like fourth sabbatical at this point. So pretty
That's
wild.
awesome.
Yeah.
I think that if more companies did that, or at least provided more benefits like that, there wouldn't be this huge resignation happening. I mean, I I found it interesting that you're still at PayPal, of course, but then obviously those benefits are just so amazing, and so many people don't have that. Like the best that companies can do are like, oh, we'll help pay toward your health insurance that only covers so much. It doesn't even cover like mental health services or like a chiropractor. So it's
Yeah. Well, and I
frustrating.
mean, and even further than that, like look at the last 2 years that we've lived through that have just been like extremely challenging from, a wellness perspective. Not to mention there's been like social unrest. There's been a lot of really trying stuff happening in these last few years. And it was quite surprising to me as like we talked in our friend group and we got to hear how our like other friends of ours had employers who were handling things in ways that were not impressive in any capacity. And then I look at, the company I work for and it's like I'm so proud to, scream from the rooftops I work for them because of the way that they've handled these, you know, trying times. So, an example of this would be like that we had, extra time off to take for COVID stuff for, if a family member got sick or if, we needed to take a leave. It was like no questions asked. COVID, like COVID stuff, you can take time off.
Wow.
Um, the other thing with a lot of the unrest that happened after George Floyd's murder, our CEO immediately came out and was like, we stand with all people of color. We believe Black Lives Matter. We want you guys to put the Black Lives Matter in your company signatures. We want you to start using pronouns in your company signatures. We want to have like safe spaces where you can have dialogue with colleagues about like how you're feeling about this stuff. And I mean, not to mention the incredible like hundreds of millions of dollars they donate to small Black owned businesses and, you know, just businesses around the world in general. So, I mean, I think that to your point, it's not just about, the benefits that companies are offering that's going to people keep people there and not leaving, but it's also like I want to work for a company that I believe in and that I believe like is doing the right thing in the world and not
Hmm.
just some sleazy moneymaker.
Oh,
And I
yes.
do. I do believe I work for a company that's trying to do good in the world. So, because if you've paid any attention to the companies that PayPal's been acquiring over the last 5 years, it's wild the stuff that we're getting into, shipping and return services, Honey that does like coupons online.
Hmm.
Like there's a lot of different stuff we're breaking into. So
Pinterest.
that one is a flop, unfortunately. We're not moving forward with the Pinterest deal from what I've read in articles recently,
Okay.
but yeah,
I would,
Pinterest would be incredible because
God,
of
that would be
how
huge.
the Pinterest app is just insane how you can like pin products to the photos.
It's
I mean, they
amazing.
need a solution like PayPal in there, but you know.
I know. I thought that would have been a huge move for PayPal and for Pinterest, but that's interesting. I didn't actually, I haven't even read up on that, so I'm glad that you told me it's not going through.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I'm not like, high enough in the company that I know like the inner workings of all this stuff. So who knows? Like maybe I'm wrong. But um, it seemed like the media had caught wind of it before it was like fully baked and had published some stuff that was not like, you know, probably appropriate to publish at the time. And by the
Yeah.
time people were hearing about it, PayPal was like, yeah, we're not really doing this. So
Well, let's talk about some of that internal stuff that you brought up earlier, because I think that you are so brilliant. And the things that I can imagine the reason why you have been able to really like build up that corporate ladder, so to speak, is because of your amazing ideas that you have and the way that you can take those ideas and make them into a reality. And recently, you had an idea that I thought was great. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but what are some of those internal struggles, and how do you kind of like uh, navigate that, and how are you able to work through those?
yeah. So, So I guess the way I would start like answering this is I think that there are two types of people. I actually heard this from somebody and I like literally cannot tell you who it was. I don't think it was like a celebrity or like a famous quote or anything, but I heard someone say that you're either a person who lives to work or you're a person who works to live.
Mm,
And I am definitely a person who works to live. Now, that said, I have a lot of pride in like the way that I function in the workspace. I want to like show up in certain capacities. And I think that most people that kind of fall into the same category as me that have that like pride element are probably the type of people that have what I would call like a growth mindset. And I think that that is probably like the most important thing to figure out how to adopt because, the more I age, the more I experience life, the more I realize how much of like the good stuff is in like the development and evolution of, personal like evolution, but also how you're evolving yourself for the workspace. And um with that, I think that I've done a lot of reflecting and a lot of journaling and a lot of mindfulness practices. And I've been very thoughtful about um, how I present myself in terms of like my brand as an employee. And also, being mindful about like the audience I have on any email, call, meeting, all of that. So, one thing I think that I've done well that has helped me kind of move up the ladder in relation to the audience conversation is that I do try to like even when it's scary and intimidating, I try to take advantage of opportunities when I'm on big calls with higher up leaders and they say, "Hey, do you have a question?" I make a point before those calls to think of challenging questions that are very like highbrow, to say the
yeah.
least. Like, questions that make people go, that was a good question. And that strategy, I think, has like taken me quite far. It's surprising the amount of people that reach out to you after you ask things like that and go, wow, that was a really good question you asked in that meeting. I wanted to know that too. And I take advantage of like every chance I get somebody outreaching to me like that. I basically say, okay, you reached out to me. I am now considering you to be a part of my network, and I hope that you would consider me a part of your network. Like, please reach out to me if you need anything, if you want to like connect, like let's build a relationship. Um, and I already told you, like I'm that's basically what my job is relationship management.
Hmm.
But I don't think we in our American culture are taught enough to ask other people about themselves and encourage other people to talk about themselves. And I feel like um, asking like thoughtful questions and stuff opens up that door for really interesting dialogue. And yeah, so I just said a lot of
Wow.
stuff.
No, but I mean, I love that because basically what I'm hearing is you take advantage in the best way of making sure that you're being seen at work. And that allows you to have a greater network around you so that you can continue to grow with your coworkers or even like mentor. I'm sure you're mentoring coworkers that you can, pass down some information to them so that they can grow their careers. I think that's wonderful. Do you
Yeah, yeah.
do you mentor?
I do, yeah. So I actually run a new hire training and like onboarding group for my space. The job I work in right now is one of the few positions at PayPal where we don't have like formal trainers. So it's kind of peer-led training, and I kind of do that as like my side project from my normal job. I do all of the scheduling for the trainings and host a lot of them, and definitely have like little mentoring sync ups and stuff. So, um, yeah, I mean, I'm all about like sharing knowledge with people and sharing. I mean, I've actually been reading stuff lately about how the term best practices is not like a great term to use for
Really?
for, yeah, but I'm going to use it just because I don't have anything else to use right now. But I do like to share what I think of as best practices.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah.
I love it. Well, do you want to get into like some internal things that happen in the workplace that you work on? And like I I bring this up because I think a lot of people actually go through this and it could be very helpful for a bunch of people to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that what you're like leading me into is probably some conversations I've had with you about like how I basically have to go to bat and negotiate with internal people that in most cases would be considered my colleagues, but I'm kind of like put in a position where I'm actually having to like debate them in a lot of cases in this like work environment on behalf of the accounts that I support. So, this is like contract negotiating. This could be like requesting money. Like it could be a ton of different things. And, I think that there are a couple of like standout pieces that I kind of always try to like keep in mind when I go into those conversations. So one thing, like the most important thing in my opinion is to always have perspective that there's like a human on the other side. I
Mm.
think in this online environment with us getting more and more into like remote work settings, um, I call it phone bravery. That's like the old like word for it. But there's kind of this idea, it's the same thing as cyberbullying. It's like you don't get to see the person on the other side of it. And so you're a little more brave to maybe say something harsh or say something, abrasive. And so I try to very much have perspective all the time, regardless of it being a remote situation or not, that there is another human being on the other side. And it's not some personal thing between me and them. It
Hmm.
is that we're just trying to like accomplish a task together. So I think having, clear perspective going into conversations like that is like a important first step. Um, I also think that having like expectation setting interactions with everybody is really important too. So like if I'm going to go into, some contract negotiation conversation with like a finance person or a legal person, I'm going to like very clearly state my expectations of what we're setting out to accomplish. And if I do have, deadlines or really specific key dates that I need to make sure they're aware of, I'm probably going to say it an annoying amount of times because I think that um I'm not going to remember this stat correctly, but there's some insane thing where like it takes a ton of iterations for you to remember something. Like our
Mm.
memories are not good enough to just hear something once and let it stick. So I make a point to communicate my expectations over and over and over and over again.
So
And
smart.
also ask for people to communicate their expectations to me. So I don't assume that like someone needs something by a certain time. I ask them, when do you need this by? You know, um, so I think that there's just like some really basic um, kind of organizational pieces there that sometimes get forgotten because we're like, I mean, in the work life, you're like putting out fires sometimes and you're just like
Yeah.
running around crazy. And it's very easy to get transactional and not consider the fact that we're all human and we all need empathy and we all need to be kind to each other. So,
Wow. I think I actually, it's so funny that you say that because I don't really think about that as being an issue that we have working from home. And now so many people work from home. Um, I think, are you full time working from home from here on out? Yeah, that's
yeah.
crazy.
Hmm.
And I mean, I think it's great, but there are like those downsides of working from home. Like, communication is harder sometimes when you're trying to communicate something through an email instead of verbally in the office. Um, and I thought what you said about uh, people having phone bravery is so relatable to social media and how I don't know if it's like that people just have this um they're hidden behind their phone like nobody can see me so I can just say whatever I want and tweet whatever I want and it kind of creates this super like mean environment and that has just all this animosity. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I know you are reading a book or had been reading a book that I had kind of recommended to you, but
Just
this
finished?
book that this book that I'm talking about, I actually had a therapist recommend it to me, and it talks a lot about like negative thinking patterns and how it like affects your brain activity and your it's basically challenging to break yourself out of negative speaking and negative like dialogue if you're not being super mindful about it. And I think the thing that I see as being a problem with the social media and like cyberbullying stuff or just the way people are so harsh to one another is I almost feel like there's this like a vacuum universe that exists in like social media that is different from the rest of the world, and it's like the negativity everyone's just feeding off of it in this really like disturbing and unhealthy way. So,
Yeah.
someone says something negative or hurtful, and then I'm sure we all have felt this feeling where, someone hurts your feelings and you kind of get this like rage or you're like, you want to cry or whatever. A lot of our knee jerk reactions to that hurt and anxiety is to attack back.
Right.
And so what happens is you have this nasty back and forth that started, and mean words are just flying, and everybody can read those comments and get, the vibe or energy from it and keep it going, right? So I don't know. I think that we need to I think this ties to your episode from last week, but I think we need to, create some type of culture, especially online and social media, that we lift each other up instead of tear each other down. So,
Absolutely. The book, by the way, that we're referring to is called Buddha's Brain.
yeah,
And
gosh, I didn't even say the name.
I actually am forgetting the author right now. I'll put it in the episode notes, but it's a really good book. I finally finished it last night. I'm such a slow reader. Um, but I also wanted to say that it's interesting the way that we have allowed that culture to sort of flourish on social media, and it's so dangerous. And now with this new, metaverse on the horizon, and what that really looks like, being able to virtually be around other people, um, it could be very dangerous. And I don't know, like we need to be super mindful before we dive into all of that because it's not going to just be like this thing that Zuck keeps putting up on his social media, like, oh look, I'm fencing and like it looks cool and it looks fun, but could that be dangerous?
Yeah, I mean, to me, like, I see this whole thing as being I see it involving social media and the internet, but I see it as like such a larger issue. And part of part of why I feel like I've recognized this recently is because I'm taking advantage of some tuition reimbursement benefits from work, and I'm going to
Praise.
traditional college for the first time ever, and
You
I'm
go,
doing
girl.
anthropology. I'm doing anthropology, so I'm taking a sociology class, and as I've been like reading, the material for the sociology class, I've been having these like kind of aha moments where I'm realizing just how deeply rooted in our society, like misogyny and all of this kind of like negative talk about women, especially, has just been almost encouraged for so long. Um, I don't want to say that, you know, um, there isn't harm happening to like all people on the internet, but I think that there is a larger conversation we need to have as like a global society and be like talking about tearing down these problematic roots of, the tree of our life at this point. So I don't know what the solution is, and I don't
Yeah, I was gonna
really,
say, how do we
it's
how do we do that?
I mean, I think that having candid, open dialogue on large social media platforms is one way to get the ball rolling with it. I mean, I definitely am. And I know you had mentioned that you kind of wanted to maybe go into like my social media stuff at some point in this conversation. So I hope I'm not jumping into this too early, but like I, had been very, very active on social media and kind of took a step back and realized that I was harming myself um, by being so involved in creating content to post for my personal social media page. And I wanted to figure out a way to use social media so that I was not just like scrolling through and looking at like amazing clothes and people that I thought were beautiful. But I wanted to find creators that had something unique and powerful to say, and I wanted to like be a part of their community. And so I definitely engage in social media in a very different way now, because anytime like something comes up in my feed where it's like, I don't know, some model that I followed years ago, I just unfollow it
Yeah.
immediately. Not because I mean, I still enjoy like intaking that content, right? I still enjoy flipping through some models beautifully curated editorial, Instagram page, but it doesn't like feed my soul. It doesn't do
Right.
anything for me. So it's like, why am I wasting my time with that when I could be utilizing this to hear some groundbreaking opinion from somebody who's lived a life like beyond anything I could live? So
I I mean, there's so much that we need to say about all of this because one, I mean, not everybody has the mental strength to be able to like unfollow people that are harming them. And, or like obviously these people don't know that they're harming people. But if you're personally scrolling through and you're like, this doesn't make me feel good, you should unfollow them. And that not
yes.
everybody has that ability, which is really interesting because that's like the number one thing that social media, um, I think people have a problem with is like you have all of the power with your own social media. So you should have the power to follow who you want and find creators that are bringing some knowledge and purpose to your life. And then you also have the power to not follow people that are not bringing any of those things to your life. So how did you gain that power?
I have to say that like my years of dedication to yoga practice and mindfulness probably is the thing that like has set me up for success. Um, the more I like explore my path to leadership, the more I explore just like every facet of my personal development, all of it comes back to mindfulness practices and being thoughtful and being um, willing to reflect. I honestly think the reflection piece is probably something that most people miss in relation to social media. They probably know that something has made them feel bad, but they're not really like taking the second to reflect on why that is and what they should be doing about it.
Hmm.
Um, and it's frankly, it's hard. It's hard to retrain yourself and get into a new, habit or like pattern or routine of practicing mindfulness. So for me, I had gotten really into yoga. I think it was like 2017, 2018, but there
Hmm.
were like 2 years there where I did probably upwards of 2 hours of yoga every single day for those 2 years. I was like, I was crazy with my yoga back then. I still
Yeah.
love yoga, but I'm not doing it like as much as I did then. But I do think that, looking back at the time of my life, that like the personal things I was experiencing at that time, I needed that like outlet. I needed that outlet to have my quiet mindfulness time. Um, and I think people just like need to be willing to make space for that. I don't think enough people, I mean, I do this. I'm sure you do. I sit down, or I get up from my office desk after work day, for example, and I'm like, okay, well, I need to do homework. I need to make dinner. I need to take out the trash. I need to take the dog for a walk. And you start like making these lists of things and you go, I don't have time like to
Hmm.
fit all this stuff in my day. So I started realizing that, like, regardless if I felt like I had time or not, I just was always going to dedicate, even if it's 10 minutes, 10 minutes to just sit down in silence. And
Mm.
whether it was, great, I do a lot of like journaling where it's like I just sit and list everything that I'm grateful for. Like, that's one really good mindfulness practice to kind of gain perspective of like the fact that you do have a lot to be thankful for in your life and not everything's as bad as you might be, going down in your brain. Um, so yeah, I think that we just need to encourage each other to like make space for that and be kind to ourselves. So,
That is so powerful. I think that like I consider running in the morning a part of like my time to focus on myself and to not have any devices and just, you know, do my thing. But I think that like journaling is something that I used to do a lot. And that's probably why I came out with that zine years and years and years ago. But I should really get back into that. I really love the idea of listing out things that you're grateful for because that is such a positive thing. So that's like, and just like the book we were talking about, Buddha's
yeah.
Brain, like if you're thinking those positive thoughts, all of a sudden you feel better.
Yes. Well, it's like, um, you know, if you're, I mean, if you're talking bad about yourself, if you're standing in the mirror and you're like, oh, I don't look good, you don't
Mm,
feel good. Like, those words have power, they have meaning. And, you know, I don't know if all people would agree with this, but I was raised by a woman who like always told me like wake up in the morning and say affirmations in the mirror even if you don't feel it. Like, tell yourself you're great, tell yourself you're beautiful, and just say it at yourself in the mirror. And I feel like it's the same type of idea in some way, right? It's like just creating some positive talk right at the start of your day to get the ball rolling in the right direction. Um, and then to the journaling thing, I am somebody who like loathes writing. Like, I'm sure you
I
remember this
know.
from high school. I'm like, I can't stand writing. Especially creative writing. Like, I can't do creative writing. If it's um like a book report, yeah, I can do that all day. But I don't like putting my thoughts onto paper. And it took me a long time and a lot of therapy to buy into this whole idea that journaling is a good practice. And I actually, through the help of some influencers out there on social media platforms, uncovered a style of journaling that works for me.
Oh.
So, if you like, you audience members or Dakota, um, don't know how to start journaling, look into like different approaches that people take to journaling. The one that I have found that works really well for me is bullet journaling. So it's like rather than just like writing out a full thought, it's like making lists. Like I am somebody who like I just need like a list to dump everything out of my brain. And then once all that stuff that I'm like thinking about is dumped on a page, I can move on into, more productive thinking.
Oh my
So
gosh, that's so interesting.
so, yeah, I think that, you got to kind of like test the waters with the approach that's going to work for you because, we all have different like communication styles and stuff. So, my bullet journaling might be great for me, but you might need to be a little more wordy in your like mindfulness journaling to feel fulfilled in the same way. So,
I definitely have like that free thought writing, like it's just like run on sentences that I could just go on forever and ever and ever. But you're right, like everyone has a different style. And I think that the bulleting journaling is actually um, also maybe really good for people like yourself who are really busy, but you do want to take that time to actually write out those things because then once they're written, you don't have to think about them anymore, right?
yeah, well, and I kind of leave little pads of paper or journals around different places in the house because I'm like I want to give myself a chance to like brain dump that stuff whenever I can. So if I'm like laying in bed at night and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have like 10 things I need to do like first thing when I get on at work in the morning, I'm probably not going to be able to fall asleep or like relax. I'm just going to constantly be in that like worrying, anxiety brain state. So I have like a little journal next to my bed and I'll make a list of like, these are all the things I need to do in the morning, my bullet points, and then I can put it to the side and be like, okay, it's off my mind now. I have it written down, so I'm not going to forget,
Yeah,
and so that works for me personally.
I really love it. I think that's great. And I think that that could probably help a bunch of people.
Well, I
So,
hope. I mean, I didn't
yeah.
invent this by any means. Like, look up bullet journaling, YouTube videos galore. Some people make the most beautiful bullet journals I've ever seen. Like, oh my gosh. Anyways.
Okay, let's talk. I mean, I feel like we're already at an hour, which is crazy. Um, but I don't know.
We could
I
keep
was
talking.
yeah, well, I know this. I already know this. Anyway, for anyone interested, I'm going over to Courtney's after this to get my hair done, but I don't think you really take hair appointments anymore, do you?
Yeah, so I'm not really like actively looking for new hair clients. It's definitely something that, I always keep in my back pocket. Like that's what trades are so amazing for, is like it's always
Mm,
this, kind of fallback um side hustle you can always kind of have.
yeah.
So for me, especially in the last 10 years or so, I've realized that I have a lot more fun and am more personally fulfilled with exploring my like cosmetology side of my job when it's more like editorial or like true styling, like just, doing a bride's hair and makeup for her wedding day. Like that kind of thing is much more fulfilling and exciting to me than having like regular clients. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, I've got some friends and family that are always going to be in my like calendar for that because I can't do you guys dirty and send you off to somebody else.
No.
But yeah, I'm definitely not like looking to take on like new hair, like hair color or cutting clients. But yeah, if you know somebody who needs a hairstylist for their
A
wedding,
wedding.
send them my way. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I
Or
dig
like a
it.
photo shoot or
Well, we
whatever.
used to work in that capacity together when I had my vintage shop. You were always so gracious to do hair and makeup for the models, and it was like you're just so talented. But you're
Oh,
also like
that's
a crazy fashionista and have like this amazing eye for just artistically putting together outfits. And I always thought, like, I thought that your career choice should be stylist for celebrities, but that's just me.
I mean, I would probably love and thrive in a career like that, but honestly, I think I have a bit of like an eclectic style that's probably too eclectic for most. um, my philosophy with styling has always been like make it tackier, make it like
More.
more, more. Always more. More glitter, more colors, more prints, more layers, more accessories, all of it just maximalist to the extreme. So
I love it. Okay, so are you on LinkedIn, and where do you want people to find you if they want to network with you?
yeah, so I mean I'm pretty much on the platforms with the exception of Twitter. I've never been like a Twitter person.
So weird that you're not on
But
Twitter.
yeah, I guess I never got into it. But I do have Instagram, so I'm here's the thing, as in here's the thing.
As in HEARS.
Yes. You hear it. So here's the thing on Instagram. I am on LinkedIn. I've kind of shifted since I like stopped posting so much on Instagram with my like personal stuff, and I really started focusing more on career development. I've shifted a lot more to like networking and connecting with people on LinkedIn and messaging there. So yeah, you can find me there. I'm like never on Facebook, but I have one.
I love it. I think everyone says that. They're like, yeah, I have one, but I'm never gonna log in.
No, never. And then I actually still to this day like love Pinterest and make Pinterest boards like crazy.
Me too.
I'm like crazy for Pinterest. I've never stopped loving Pinterest. Yeah, so you can follow my Pinterest boards if you want to see the kind of wacky fashion I'm into.
I think everyone will want to see that. So, okay. So, Courtney, anything else that you want to say before we end our podcast sesh?
Yeah, I guess the last thing that I want to say is, you know, always try to do things with intention. Remember, there's another person on the other side of every conversation. Be kind, be empathetic, and especially for women, always support other women. If we ever talk bad about other women publicly, we're damaging all of our chances for success.
Yeah.
So,
hell yeah.
Anyways, getting off my soapbox now.
No, that's so important. Thank you for saying that. And thank you so much for joining me on this week's podcast.
Thank you for having me. I honestly feel like I just want to go meet up with you for lunch now. And I know
we're getting happy hour too later.
I know. We just like need to carry the conversation on. We need to keep it going because this is fun.
I feel like this is going to be the most fun podcast session ever that everyone's going to be like, can you bring Courtney back? So it might need to be a monthly thing.
I mean, I'm more than happy to be your reoccurring guest. So
yay!
Please invite me back.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here this week. Thank you to all of our listeners. Again, this is Courtney Robinson. You can find her on all of the things. And we'll see you next week on the Social Media Manager. Okay.